Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, pause this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. In the context of this podcast, everybody refers to us and our cat. You are free to feel however you want about Rand, who is a fictional character. Don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragons reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Some listeners brought up that we haven't talked about Hatchet in a while. Do we have anything to add to our Hatchet canon?
I haven't looked at the Hatchet Wikipedia articles in a while. If someone paid me enough money, I would read all the Hatchet books and review them as like a podcast, but as it is right now, I don't particularly have anything to say about the Hatchet books. I haven't thought about them in a while, I guess.
Yeah, I tend to repress them, so I'm glad you guys think my childhood trauma at the hands of Gary Paulson is amusing, but maybe when we reach like $1,000 on Patreon, we'll do Hatchet for We Don't Watch Out.
Finally, the crossover content that everyone has been craving. Hatchet by Gary Paulson.
Yeah, considering we're currently at like $369 a month, it will take a while.
But it won't just be Hatchet, it will be the entire series, including such titles as Brian's Winter. Is that one?
Yeah, I think that's so. Right. That's the only one I remember.
I know he fights a bear in one.
Cool.
And it's like Leonardo DiCaprio, fighting that bear in that movie he won an Oscar for.
Leonardo DiCaprio play Brian in our
I'd rather he didn't.
Adaptation. Okay, who would you cast?
Who would I cast? This is a fun question. Who would I cast as Brian in Hatchet? I don't know many child actors.
Yeah, because Brian's like 13, 12?
Yeah.
13? I don't know any child actors.
I know, I'm like trying to remember any of the child actors from any of the like Netflix shows.
Yeah, the only ones I can like picture are the Stranger Things kids.
Right.
But they're like 16-ish now, right?
You could age up Brian, I think, and that would be reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean,
true.
It would be less distressing to watch a movie if things were happening too. Like,
oh my god, I want Brian to be the really dumb one from Julie and the Phantoms. I can't remember what his name is. I just want him to bring that energy.
The one who looks like Dylan O'Brien's weird cousin.
Yeah.
He is good.
I mean, I think he's like 30 though. But
yeah, the Julie and the if I had to pick a kid from Stranger Kids, I was trying to say, I think, but Stranger Things, it would be not the one who's blowing up.
Finn Wolfhard?
Yeah, not that one.
Okay.
I'd be fine with either of the other two boys.
Okay. I could see that. I take back my Julie and the Phantoms.
I think both of them have appeal.
Tibble?
For one thing, I think it would be cool to see Brian played by, I'm saying it would be cool to see Brian played by as though Brian has had so many other adaptations. But obviously Gary Paulson has no imagination, and so I'm sure Brian was written as like a white boy in mind. It would be nice to have any actor of color play him instead, just because there is nothing determining Brian's race in Hatchet. Yeah. It's literally just Brian.
I would say who else should we cast, but there's literally nobody else in Hatchet except the corpse of the dead pilot.
Yeah, there's a pilot who's in it for 5 minutes, and then he has a heart attack, and then he dies.
It'd be very funny to have someone like super famous play the pilot.
Oh my god, yeah, like Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Although Idris Elba has lost some respectability for me since he was in Cats.
Oh, I mean, yeah, he looks horrifying.
I know it's not his fault that he looks horrifying in Cats, but I'm just like, any celebrity who was like, Cats? Sure. Except Ian McKellen. Ian McKellen gets a free pass to do whatever the fuck he wants because he's 81.
Yeah.
And, like, a gay theater kid, so yeah, he would be in Cats.
It also looked like Ian McKellen was having the fucking time of his life when he's performing in Cats. You've never seen Cats.
I've seen clips.
You should pretend she's some type of expert.
I've watched videos about Cats.
That's so weird, but you won't watch Cats itself.
I watched the Lindsay Ellis video essay about Cats, titled "Why is Cats?"
They're jellicle cats.
They're jellicle cats, and I felt like that really hit the highlights for me.
No, it's an experience, start to finish.
Like an acid trip.
With my boy Skimbleshanks, the railway cat.
Everyone loves Skimbleshanks.
He just wants you to have a good train ride.
Everybody hates Rand, everybody loves Skimbleshanks, the rail.
That will be my spin-off podcast. Anything else you want to pack into this cold open?
No.
Okay. Welcome to Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Sally Goodger.
I'm Emily Jushaw.
And this is Tybalt.
Welcome to Wheel of Time, the only fantasy text that manages to make things like spy mastery boring as fuck.
So boring. The entire time I was reading it, I was like, why do we have to first get the incorrect report and the correct report?
And like, also, like, what in Robert Jordan's head was he like, you know who would be a fun character for me to write? This man who has the personality of an accountant from Parks and Recreation, but who is, like, big into spy work. And, like, I have nothing personal against Balwer.
Sure.
He's fine. He continues to be a character, as many of, like, Morgoth's peripheral characters are, and he eventually becomes Perrin's sort of quasi-spy master.
It's weird.
Not that Perrin wants or needs one. Balwer is just like, but I need to do it. And Perrin's like, okay, whatever, tell me whatever shit you want. Like, he's fine. In another text, I think he would be an interesting character, but the fact that we are getting him paired with Pedron Niall, world's least likable grandfatherly man, is unfortunate.
But I was thinking about this, just to set the scene real quick. We are with Pedron Niall in the Tower of the Light, or whatever, the Fortress of the Light, or whatever the fuck their dumb stronghold is called. And he's talking first to his, like, puppet spy master, and then his actual spy master.
Yeah, he's paying a guy to be a fake spy master, which to me just seems like a waste of resources.
Yeah, like, the point of your spy master, like, everyone's like, oh, we all know that's the spy master. And it's like, wouldn't you think anyone with 2 brain cells would be like, that's not actually the spy master. I can't actually know who the spy master is. And he's like, this guy isn't just, like, getting paid a little bit. Like, he's canonically rich enough to buy several fake horns of Valyr.
Yeah, not only is he clearly a fake spy master, but he's clearly a bad spy master.
Yeah.
So it's like, why wouldn't you think he was fake?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just like, I spend money on, like, fake horns of Valyr all the time, and then go into my mountain retreat or whatever to try summoning the heroes of the horn. He just believes everything he hears.
Yeah.
And yeah, he gives Pedron Niall this inaccurate report that I can't even remember mostly, because it's just, like, meant to favor the White Cloaks. He's like, Ilion is about to fall into our pockets, as are every other country. And it's totally fine. And then Balwer comes in and is like, no, that's not true. No one is on our side because we're the fucking White Cloaks. No one wants to be allied with us. Yeah. I mean, he says it nicer than that, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was thinking, this is not, like, a concrete thought, literally, at all. But, like, so much of epic fantasy that is, like, based in a quasi-European-like continent, so, like, you know, Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time, kind of Lord of the Rings, like, lays so much of its plot foundation on this, like, mock realism of politics, and that there has to be so many different things happening all at the same time. I'm not saying I'm not saying mock realism is in, like, yeah, politics is a lot of different things happening at the same time. That's how politics works. But it's just, like, so weird to me that of all the, like, quote-unquote realistic elements to try and put into your fantasy series, that so many epic fantasy writers up to this point have hit on, like, it has to be political machinations, whatever that word is. Like, it has to be that. I have to have characters playing the game of houses, basically playing the Game of Thrones, and it's just like, I don't know, very odd to me. This is what I was thinking about instead of actually listening to anything that the White Cloaks were saying.
Well, yeah, I don't know either, because my first instinct would be to say that when you have, like, politics driving the plot, then that is not necessarily a neat, but a sidestep away from having your plot revolve around, like, fighting and, like, video game mechanics of just, like, stumbling from one encounter to another. But, and that is, like, maybe if you are someone who is, like, I don't want to depict a lot of warfare and fighting in my fantasy series, then, yeah, that makes sense. But these are, of course, authors like George R. R. Martin and Robert Jordan, who are also just, like, war crimes. Yeah. So it's sort of like, yeah, I guess an attempt to add a spice of realism so that it doesn't feel just like a Dungeons and Dragons game.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I find it to be one of the most exhausting parts of reading books like this. These, like, epic doorstop dragging on forever and ever is just the idea that there are so many pieces of information, and like Emily said, there are people who are capable of digesting all those pieces of information who just must be smarter than me, and so congratulations and I love you. But I personally just find it, like, so exhausting that, like, with these books, especially in Wheel of Time, it's like every chapter from a different person's point of view presents me with an entirely different chessboard of political pieces.
Yeah, like, we're not just keeping track of the information, we are keeping track of which information is being disseminated accurately to whom, who has the incorrect information, meanwhile also keeping track of what is really happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, from the White Cloaks, I seriously only need, like, one very small set of actual information, and that is what is happening in Terabon and Eridaman. Which we get here in a very, like, buried underneath it all, as Pedron Niall opens this note from one of his informants in Terabon, and it is like, the Shornchin are back!
Yeah.
And Pedron Niall literally just, like, throws it away, because he's like, fake news.
Yeah, he's like, this guy must have come down with a brain fever. I love it when they're like, he has the brain fever.
They're like, this previously totally sane person must be mad. Let me get back to plotting world domination. Which is literally all Pedron Niall is doing. Yeah. In, like, a bizarre sort of thing that we're supposed to keep track of Pedron Niall's heretofore wildly unsuccessful bids for world domination. Like, he has been introduced since, I would say, solidly book 2.
Yeah.
Because that's when Carradine became a character. The fact that I have to keep track of multiple White Cloaks.
It's ridiculous.
Kills me. He's been a character, and he has been trying to, like, to dominate the world since book 2 and has made zero progress. Zip. In fact, all that we can, like, the only power he has gained over any type of throne is in Andor, because Morgoth is right there, but everyone thinks Morgoth is dead.
Yeah.
In Andor. So he has nothing.
Yeah.
And in fact, Amadicia is falling to the prophet.
Yeah. Like, Pedron Niall didn't do the, like, logical thing, which was to, like, announce to everyone that, look, Morgoth is dead, and here's some type of proof that I can offer. Morgoth is alive.
I was like,
sorry.
Wait.
Morgoth is alive. Sorry. Be like, look, I do actually have the Queen of Andor here with me, and so...
And she's voluntarily here with me.
Yeah. Like,
look, she's like, film one of those, like, videos.
Yeah.
Where she has to be like, I'm fine, but she's mouthing at the camera, save me.
She's got, like, a newspaper from that day. Yeah, so, like, he could have done that, and then he would have some political foothold in Andor, but he's just like, she'll come around, and then we'll take our army, and it's like, you missed your window, my guy. And now everyone's gonna be like, no, you haven't had Morgoth there for 3 months or whatever you would have told people.
He's essentially doing the same thing that the White Tower is doing, which is nothing, but feeling like they're doing everything, and it's, I mean, fine, sure, you have a pretty intentional parallel there.
Yeah.
But, it comes to nothing. Like...
Yeah, like... again, I don't know how many times we can say this, but it's like the incompetence that Robert Jordan gives to his antagonists is just like not interesting at this point, because all of the antagonists are incompetent, with like maybe the exception of the Shanshin, but they're literally invaders, so I'm not going to be like, yeah, those are my favorite antagonists.
Right, like name an antagonist who... An antagonist has to have 3 things.
Big dick.
I was gonna say sexy, but sure. First, they have to be sexy. Second of all, they have to have more than 2 functioning brain cells.
Yeah.
And 3, they have to have some sort of power to enact upon the plot. And literally none of our antagonists in this series, like, fulfill that quota.
Yeah.
Shanshin, not sexy at all.
No.
Pedron Niall, not sexy, and does not have any brain cells.
Or, like, he has some power, but he's not using it, so...
Yeah, he's just like, I'm just gathering the white cloaks. And it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Okay, which antagonists are sexy, though?
Asmodee.
Asmodee.
And we lost him.
And we lost him.
Yeah, that's a good question. Which antagonists are sexy? Let me think about it. Because none of the Forsaken really are sexy, even though Robert Jordan writes them to be sexy.
Yeah, he's like, look how sexy Grendel is. And I'm like, I mean, she's probably a very beautiful woman, but I don't particularly find human enslavement to be quite sexy.
Okay, I'm gonna say something bold and it might upset a few people. The Gholam has the potential to be sexy.
I agree!
I think he's our best functioning antagonist. Yeah. He's very smart. He probably only has 2 functioning brain cells.
But he's got 2.
Because he does have at least 2, but he does not cross the threshold of, like, outpacing Matt, who is, the protagonist who is most often set in conflict with him. Like, Matt is smarter than him.
Yeah.
And it's sad that we don't get to see him outsmarting Matt once or twice.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I get you. I also feel like the Gholam has big potential for, like, sexy vibes, because he's got very, like, vampire vibes.
Yeah.
Like, there's this scene at the beginning of The Path of Daggers where he, like, drains someone of all their blood. And I'm like, okay, listen. Don't, like, again, I'm not condoning vampirism.
Yeah, we're not, like, celebrating how the Gholam literally rips people apart.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's super strong, the fact that he can, like, literally go under doors. Yeah. The scene where he throws a knife at Matt and Matt catches it, that's wildly homoerotic.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'm just saying, like, the elements are there to have, like a sexy vampire asshole that you're like, okay. You just got the vibes, Okay, so we have one functioning antagonist in all 14 books.
A single functioning antagonist. I can't think of any others.
It's like the Dark One's not sexy. He talks in all caps.
I know. He's also not smart.
Yeah, he's like, here, Demandra, do stuff for me.
I know, like, get fucked, the Dark One. He's just like, hey, everyone do different shit. And, like, don't work together. Teamwork does not make the dream work in my case.
Yeah.
Like, he's so obsessed with his own, way of doing things.
Yeah.
That he doesn't ever get anything done.
It's a nice commentary on evil, I guess.
Well, it's a false commentary on evil.
Good point, Emily.
Because, as you have pointed out via your Holocaust studies, is like the Nazi Party and other fascist regimes are wildly efficient.
Yep, that's their, like, whole thing.
Yeah, they're so competent, they get things done. That is how they work. How they manage to commit major genocides.
Yep.
Alongside infrastructural things like racism. Like, that's a major component. But
yeah.
It's like a failed experiment.
Yeah.
It's sort of like Robert Jordan's failed experiment to see if incompetent antagonists are interesting.
Yeah.
And no is the answer.
Well, yeah, and it's also frustrating because it feels like the antagonist had to be dumbed down in order for the protagonist to succeed.
Yeah.
And it's like you said with the Gholam, you have to hit that, like, sweet spot of, like, it still being a very threatening antagonist, but also, like, the protagonist is just, like, one step ahead, one step smarter, one step, more valiant or whatever. Like, it has to be close. That's, like, what makes it tense. But here I'm like, Rand is going to kill Samael because Samael's a dumb piece of shit. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that that's going to happen. It's never crossed my mind in the Balefire battle with Robin that Rand would lose. And I know that's, like, movie mechanics where it's, like, we're watching Haikyuu right now, and I keep being like, Emily, do you think they're going to lose? And it's like, of course the main character team isn't going to lose the sports game eventually, like, you know, in the finals. They're going to win.
Yeah.
And so, like, of course there's that, but, like, that's where, like, this suspension of, like, disbelief comes in, where it's like, I want to feel tense.
Yeah, like, I know I wax poetic about the Gholam knife throwing scene all the time, but that is just, like, such a microcosm of what we are looking for there, is a knife gets thrown at your protagonist, incredibly like, Matt is fighting for his life in that sequence. He's very threatened. He watches one of his best friends die.
Yeah.
Brutally. Elaine's unconscious. The stakes are very high, but Matt catches the knife. Yes. And that's just, like, such a distillation of what it means to be a protagonist.
Yeah.
In, you know, the fantasy genre.
Yeah, just being that, like, 1 millimeter
faster.
Ahead. Yeah. But here it's just, like, the Forsaken are sort of just, like, stumbling drunkenly around the continent, and Rand, because he, for all negative things about Rand aside, he's a rather focused young lad, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Rand
like,
has fucking a to-do list.
Yeah.
He talks about his to-do list in his section.
He's just, like, keeping his little planner.
He's like, I've got to do this. I've got to talk to the first maid and the main guy, both of whom will be important for Elaine, I guess, but it doesn't really matter otherwise. But yeah, he's like, I gotta cross off the way gates. I've gotta do all this shit. And it's just like, yeah, he's got a game plan. Unlike Pedron Niall, who seems to be just like, I'm just gonna sit here and be evil.
Yeah, I'm just gonna laugh like Jamandra, I'm just gonna laugh maniacally.
Have you gotten to the point where he's been assassinated yet?
No, but I can't wait. No, I haven't gotten there if it's in Path of Daggers yet, but I'm only like 2/3.
I don't know if it's in Path of Daggers. I don't know when it is. It's just, I can't remember who does it either. We're introduced to multiple, I think it's Valda. It has to be Valda.
Maybe he has already been assassinated. This sounds vaguely familiar.
He talks about how he's waiting, like he's bringing back all the White Cloaks and Valda's coming back from Tarvalon.
Yeah.
And I know Valda is the one who kills Pedron Niall with the high, like, Inquisitor guy, whose name is Asunwa. He is, like, implicit, you know, permission, kind of.
Yeah.
Is like, sure, take over.
I feel like that happened in A Crown of Swords.
I can't keep track of the
I feel like that's happened, or maybe I've just fantasized about him dying so much.
He gets, like, it's very Julius Caesar-esque.
Yeah, he gets, like, stabbed.
Yeah, and he, like, bleeds to death in his little throne room.
Yeah, I feel like that happened sometime in A Crown of Swords.
It has to have happened in A Crown of Swords because A Crown of Swords ends with, I can't keep track of it. A Crown of Swords ends with the Shanshin invading Ebu Dar. So in the next book and a half, at some point, it feels like Amadicia should fall to the Shanshin, right? Because theoretically, Amadicia has to fall before Altara. I know that's not technically true because there's, like, Ebu Dar has a coast. Altara, I should say. I was looking at the map today, and it is wild. There's a stretch of land beneath Terabon and Amadicia that's just, like, a coast. And it's called, like, the Shadow Coast or something. And I'm like, why the fuck don't we spend any time there? That sounds intriguing as hell.
That sounds lit.
And also, why aren't you on the coast? There's, like, fish there. Resources.
Yeah.
Everyone in this fantasy land is bad at Minecraft.
Yeah, I just, again, can't with these, like, swaths of land that Robert Jordan's like, nobody's claimed that. And I'm like, that is not how monarch-based societies work.
Shrink your continent if you don't want to use all of it.
Like, Robert Jordan, like, collapses the thesis of his own map with Morgause being like, that piece of land is mine, and I will not let anybody else have it.
Yeah.
That's her entire fucking plot, is her refusing to be like, someone else could reasonably rule Andor, and I would be fine with that. So it's like, do you think so many rulers would be like, land, mine?
Yeah. Land.
Stupid.
Something called the Shadow Coast.
I want to live there. That sounds fucking baller.
But anyway, so the White Cloaks, deeply incompetent. Morgause, also deeply incompetent. We, like, catch up with her. She's just got a bunch of ladies who are gossiping about Andor. The situation in Andor. Nothing's new there. We then flip over to Rand.
This is where also Morgause's section is where we, like, I guess, No, we learned in the last book. Morgoth learns that Galad joined the White Cloaks.
Oh, right, yeah. Morgoth, someone is like, I hear Galad joined the White Cloaks. And Morgoth is, like, affecting disinterest in this development because she's, like, the only thing. Like, Galad is essentially a hostage.
Yeah.
They can kill him to keep me in line, or threaten him to keep me in line. So I just need to, like, pretend like he doesn't matter to me as much as my biological children, which is, I think, one of the more likable things about Morgoth is that she is very affectionate of Galad, and Galad is very affectionate of her.
They have a sweet relationship.
Yeah, like, they're good. It's nice to have a good stepmom, stepson relationship.
Yeah.
She doesn't give a fuck about Gawain, though.
She's like, I really hope Elena's okay, and Gawain, I guess.
And looks at smudged writing.
Gavin?
I hope he's okay. Not in Charter 1, apparently.
Yeah.
Rand is walking through the palace at Camelin, surrounded by this ridiculous honor guard.
It's
including,
like 80
I know,
people.
he's like, I've got 20 Saldeans with Davram Bashere, like, a bunch of maidens led by Sulin, and I'm with Bale and his, this is not a joke, knife hands.
Yeah.
He's fucking Bale knife hands. Like scissor hands. What the fuck?
Yeah.
So that's, hilarious.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of servants, so it is legitimately like 80 people just following Rand around.
How big are these hallways?
Yeah, and it's like, that is so many people.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's like, again, just like defying logic.
And they're just like talking about shit in.
Yeah, I mean, Bashere does have a great line where he's trying to like tell Rand something, and Rand starts laughing, and he's like, "Oh, did I say something funny?"
Yeah.
He's just being good.
What is Rand even thinking about? Oh yeah, he's like, Rand's like, listen, Mazrim Tim taught me how to not be sweaty anymore. It's fabulous. I wonder if the Aes Sedai can do it. And then he's like, thinking about Aes Sedai sweatiness. And Bashire's like, what? Why the fuck are you like this? They talk about how Camelin's filling up with, like, refugees, and how there is, like, trouble in the city because a lot of people are, like, the sort of mob, I don't want to call them the Dragon Sworn mob because they're not quite at that level, but there are people who are, like, very into Rand as Dragon Reborn concept, and they are turning violent against anyone who questions his authority.
Yeah.
And they're getting mad. A dude laughed at Rand's quote-unquote miracles, and then got hanged from the rafters, which is upsetting. Yeah. And Rand's like, my miracles, right? As a dude drops a vase worth, millions of dollars, and it just, like, rolls totally fine. And everyone's like, the timing, my dude. And they find out that there is news of some Andor noble people coming closer to the city. That's not super relevant. And then Bale is like, I have some people who told me that 2 Aes Sedai have taken rooms at an inn in the city. And Rand is like, oh, is one of them one we've already heard of? Apparently there's an Aes Sedai, there's like rumors of an Aes Sedai who heals dogs and cats, which I think is supposed to be one of the Black Aja ladies who Nynaeve and Elaine were chasing.
Yeah.
There was one on their list who was like really into cats or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. Bale's like, I don't think so. And Rand is kind of like, oh, maybe I'll send for one of them. But then he happens to walk past a garden where Avienda is, and he's like, let's go see them right now. And the maidens are like, you stupid asshole.
Yeah.
And Rand is like, if you want to put on dresses to talk about matchmaking, then go ahead. And they're just like, rude. And then Bashere and Bale are also like, maybe you are being a bit of a dick about Avienda. And Rand's like, neither of you would look good in dresses either. Which is like one of the few charming Rand moments where he's clever and, I don't know.
Yeah,
You're
just
sort of
personable.
Yeah, you have to like grasp straws with Rand any moment that he seems normal. So they just sort of leave the palace right away and head toward this inn, which is called Culain's Hound, and is a reference to Irish, or I should say Celtic mythology. Cuchulainn, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, by the way. who was like a demigod who Cuchulainn means Kool-Aid's hound.
Oh.
He was like a guy who killed the big dog of a lord and was like, I'll just, act as your guard dog until a new one can be trained or something. He's a famous figure in Celtic mythology, so it's just sort of interesting that that's placed here, because Andor isn't really our Celtic base. None of these countries, I think, really have any sort of Celtic vibes going on.
Yeah.
Not that I am an expert. But, it's much more Anglican here in Andor.
Yeah.
Rand walks in and is confronted with the awkward sight of every teenage girl he's ever known. And he's like, what the fuck? And they're like, what the fuck? Yeah. Including Matt's sister, Bodwin. Bodwin? Don't know what. Who I'm guessing that the age range we're given here is like the oldest one is 17 and the youngest one is 14. Mm-hmm. So these are literally just a bunch of teenage girls from the Two Rivers. And Rand has like a fun moment where he gets to catch up with them.
Yeah.
They're like, Lord Perrin, and he's like, Lord Perrin?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
And they like tell the story about Trollocs invading the Two Rivers, and now Perrin and Fael are married, and it's all quite funny because Bashere is standing right there and doesn't know that Fael refers to his own daughter.
I didn't even think about that.
I know, imagine if he'd been like, oh.
Beg pardon?
Pardon? Did you say Zorine Bashere?
She married who now?
She married who?
Some blacksmith motherfucker?
He's like, Rand, who is this guy? Rand's like, good guy. Bashere's like,
I don't believe it.
I don't believe him.
I'm gonna take out his kneecaps.
I'm going to curb-stomp him as soon as he gets to Camelot.
Which is basically what happens. It's like an emotional curb stomp.
Yeah, that's Bashere for you. Emotionally curb-stomping his son-in-law. He's like, Perrin, bend down. Perrin's like, yes, sir. And Bashere slaps him. Like, I couldn't reach.
I love the idea of Perrin being like twice Bashere's height. I know that's not like physically possible because Perrin would have to be like
guy.
10 feet tall.
And Perrin's supposed to be like 6'1" or something.
Yeah, I know, it's so charming. Yeah, just bending down.
The girls are like, what we're doing in Camelot is that we're with some Aes Sedai who are in the Two Rivers, and they tested us and are taking us to Tar-Valon. At pretty much that moment, Varen and Alana enter the room, and Rand's like, oh, so you stopped in Camelot because you heard about the White Tower being broken. And they're like, this is an awkward conversation to have in public, so they're like, why don't we go to a private dining room? And there's this sort of awkward posturing moment where the warders want to go with the ladies, and Rand's bodyguard of 80 people wants to go with him. And the three of them are like, no, we'll just talk in private. Which, of course, Rand doesn't, like, regret per se. It's not like he's like, if only I'd had a bunch of people with me, that wouldn't have happened. But that is sort of implicit in the text, is that maybe Alana would not have done what she did if there were a bunch of witnesses, armed witnesses with Rand. But they go to talk, and they start to have what seems like a very interesting conversation, at least to me. I was, like, reading it. I was seized by how abrupt what happens is, and how I was like, I kind of want to see Rand catching up with Varen. Yeah. Because he's like, yeah, I'm really interested in wherever the Rebel Aes Sedai are, because I hear that they can help me. And Varen and Alana are like, well, we can't really tell you where they are, even if we do know. And Alana's like, where's Matt? And Rand's like, I don't know where he is. Or it's like, I'm not going to tell you that. Yeah. Just da-da-da-da-da, you know? And it's like an interesting moment where Rand could be having a conversation with an Aes Sedai who, although Moiraine has told him explicitly not to trust any Aes Sedai, he is more familiar with Varen. And would not have... Like, we're about to enter this long section of the series where Rand's reactions to every Aes Sedai around him is essentially the same. Yeah. Which is that he treats them like foreign, particularly annoying foreign diplomats. And it's like, Varen at least has, you know, done some shit with him. So there is the possibility of a relationship there. But Alana, world ruiner, immediately is like, you look ill, let me touch you, I promise I won't hurt, nothing I do will hurt you. And Rand's like, okay, well, she can't lie, so lets her touch him. She I think it's called delving, like checking to see if he's ill at all. And then she just immediately bonds him as a warder, which Rand describes as like a burning sensation, followed by he talks about being like more aware of himself and of her, and that he's very shaky afterward. And he's like, what the fuck did you just do? And Varen's like, they try and shield him, and he immediately shields both of them.
Yeah.
And is like, what the fuck? And Varen's like, she didn't hurt you, she just bonded you as her warder. And Rand's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he is like, okay, well, here's the deal. You're not allowed to come near me ever again. If you actually even enter the old city, as opposed to where they are, the new city, then I'll find out and I will throw you in prison.
Yeah, and he's like, I'll also shield you and, like, tie it off or whatever. So basically, like, still you.
Yeah, I mean, until some other guy who can channel comes along, or, yeah, but basically. And they're like, fine. Like, he's like, am I clear? And they're like, yeah, crystal, bud. And then he storms out into the common room, where Bashere has his, like, legs slung up gaily on one of the benches and is telling all the teen girls about how Rand is the Dragon Reborn.
I like to imagine them, like, sitting in a semicircle on the floor around him.
And they're like, this dude says you're the Dragon Reborn. You need to, like, stop letting people spread that rumor about you. Don't be an asshole. And Rand's like, I am the Dragon Reborn. And they're like, don't be an egotistical idiot. And he sort of goes 0 from 60, like, wraps them up in the power just to demonstrate that he can. And he has this very short rant where he's like, I'm the Dragon Reborn, you can't change it, blah, 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 blah. Do you get it? And because we're in Rand's point of view, we don't really see the escalation of him going from being, like, floating some people to they're both crying hysterically and he's yelling and everyone is in shock. Which I don't really... I guess all I'll say about that is that when Rand goes through traumatic things, he externalizes it. Mm-hmm. He takes it out on typically other people, as opposed to Matt and Perrin are the two most obvious examples. Otherwise, Perrin internalizes things, such as when he's like, I'm just going to not think about it until Fail gets him to start crying about his dead family. Yeah. And Matt internalizes things so thoroughly that he doesn't even realize he's traumatized. He just throws up or whatever. Mm-hmm. Which is upsetting. And they're all normal, valid trauma responses, but pairing that particular trauma response of Rand's to all of the other things he intentionally does to frighten women is a little bit troubling.
Yeah, I have a complicated relationship to this scene, because it's like, of course I don't want Rand to be, like, threatening this 16 and 17-year-old girl, but it's like, this is one instance where I'm like, I'm willing to give him a little bit more leeway, because he has literally like seconds ago been assaulted. Just like, assaulted, extremely violated. He's so angry, he's so afraid. And it's like, when you are like in that headspace, like, I think it's, like, a good depiction of how, like, people don't always respond to trauma in really, like, pretty ways of just, like, crying and being, like, you know, like, beautifully waifish, like, the tuberculosis people. Like, there's, like, people respond to trauma in really ugly ways. And again, I'm not, like, I agree with you that it takes on worse resonances when looked at Rand's entire pattern of behavior, where he'll start to do this more and more intentionally.
But, like, not everyone's Perrin who weeps beautifully once into his girlfriend's bosom and then is like, cool, I'm done.
I'm fine. Yeah, exactly. And, like, or not everyone is Matt, who's just like, I'm gonna puke and be done. You know, it's like, sometimes, like, responses to traumatic events are way more complicated and ugly. And to his credit, like, once Rand realizes it, he's like, oh, fuck, I am so sorry.
He's like, oh, dang, sorry, girls.
Yeah, and he's like, I really didn't mean to do that. You know. So, like, it's not a, like, troubling thing. I don't think it's a good thing, but it is, like, a good representation of like what feels like a very realistic response.
Yeah, I think the problem is that so much of Robert Jordan's, what he's made interesting about Rand, which are his various traumatic responses and his mental illness, are really inextricably tied to his relationship with women. Like, Rand's trauma response externally doesn't end up hurting Bashere.
Yeah.
It ends up targeting, like, girls.
Yeah, like a 16-year-old girl.
You know.
And it is probably, like, 16 or something.
And Rand has these, like, symptoms of insanity regarding how he harms women, specifically, rather than people in general. So,
No, and that's totally fair, because I also think that though Rand being bonded against his will is, like, an interesting layer to, like, the whole Warder bond and a lot of other consent things that are going on. Like you said, this is basically the turning point of his relationship with Aes Sedai, where he is, like, no longer willing to entertain Aes Sedai as, like, allies or good people, literally at all. And, like, Robert Jordan is presenting that as justified because of Alanna. And, of course, I'm not saying Alanna is right. Alanna is literally one of my least favorite characters that has ever been written in the history of the world. She is literally assaulting him.
And also nonsensical. It makes no sense that Alanna does this.
Yeah, and the fact that Varen's just like,
yeah, I think we get a Varen point of view pretty soon after this, and Varen's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see that coming. Like, it's not like they plotted it beforehand. Yeah. Which means Alanna made this snap decision to bond the Dragon Reborn as her warder.
Yeah.
Which, again, makes her out to be not only a person who violated another person, but she is also so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, of all the things.
Yeah, and so what I'm trying to get out here is, like, Robert Jordan is basically just, like, presenting a justification for Rand's complete, like, fucked up relationship to women and all these, especially, like, magical women in all this regard, and it's like, of course you'd have, like, deep distrust of Aes Sedai after doing this, but it's just, like, Robert Jordan's ability to have Rand turn one isolated incident with, like, and not just this incident with Alanna, because, of course, this is a big trauma that affects him, but, like, a woman dying a mile away from him or whatever, turning that incident into, like, a personality trait.
Yeah.
With Rand is, like, I feel like I was probably insensitive in the way I was trying to describe that, so I apologize. I just feel like it's, like...
I just think you can, like, gender swap it pretty easily and see how it doesn't work. I mean, when women are very frequently victimized, not just by a single man, but by many men in their lives, they're still fully expected to engage with men.
Yeah.
Throughout, in normal ways. To have normal relationships with men and to not be distrusting of men. And part of that is part of a patriarchal system, and however you feel about men, if you are a victim of them, is totally valid. But, like, it's just women are not given the same amount of leeway.
Yeah, and I just feel like Robert Jordan is just, like, using it as an excuse.
Yeah.
For Rand's rampant misogyny, as opposed to, like, actually discussing the fact, like, actually having the fact that he was assaulted be a plot line. It's just, like, it's an excuse for him to, it's just, like, an easy, clear-cut excuse for him to be like, I don't deal with Aes Sedai anymore. Which would be, like, a valid and interesting thing if it was part of the trauma, instead of it just being, like, I just feel like it's not analyzed or extrapolated upon in any way other than Rand just being like, now I hate women 100% for sure.
Yeah, I just, like, don't get it, because at the end of this book, you have him being put into a box by Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
You'd think that would be, like, the justification enough that Robert Jordan needs to shape Rand's relationship with Aes Sedai. And if you're like, this has to be a precipitating event for how Rand will react to Aes Sedai for the rest of this book, and that will set up the box thing, that's not true either, because as he references, he just had a letter from Moiraine that was like, literally do not trust any Aes Sedai. And Rand has so many, like, psychoses around Moiraine and her death that him reacting to women the way that he does throughout this book is not unbelievable at all, if that's, like, the only part of it, you know?
Yeah, so it just feels like Robert Jordan was like, I will pepper this in
I will
Because
pepper in men being either literally or metaphorically raped and be like, it's no problem. Just to, like, throw it in there. I don't know. Yeah, we'll keep talking about this, I'm sure, especially as it, you know, continues to influence. I can't even call what happens in Lord of Chaos the plot. It's not a plot. The series of words strung together. This has been another
thrilling episode of season 6.
thrilling and angry episode of season 6. At least we had the sexy Gholam. Okay, thanks for listening. Thank you to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song. Thank you for following us on social media. I think Sally's mentioned it already, but thank you to anyone who had us on their Spotify Wrapped this year.
I'm gonna kiss you.
She'll kiss you, I guess.
No, it's just so nice. I love you guys.
It's nice.
I can't believe you guys listen to us talk for like an hour every week.
Yeah, I mean, I can, given our very hot takes about Gholam being a sexy
You're right.
protagonist.
I mean, we are the media empire the world isn't ready for.
Do you have a sign off?
This is just like millennial complaining. But I just feel like people should abolish phone calls.
Oh, yeah.
Like today I had a series of phone calls with a man I work with. And it was, like, fine. And I'm trying to be, like, he's really stressed out. Trying to, like, offer him, you know, some grace. But he was, like, he messaged me on GChat and was, like, does he even call GChat anymore? Whatever. I was like, I need you to call me. And so I called him. And he's like, I can't talk to you right now. And then he's called me back. And he was like, I still don't have an answer for you, so I'm going to find out. And then call me back and be like, okay, this is the answer. And I was like, this entire thing could have been one email.
What a nightmare.
At the end of the day.
This is like how yesterday I got out of the shower and I had 2 missed calls from my mother. And when I called her back, I found out it was because she couldn't figure out how to find the Old Navy e-receipt in her inbox. I had to tell her to use the search bar. The search bar!
And for that record, why is it that moms will be like, call me, and 30 seconds later you will call them and they will not answer?
Yeah, I called her back, she didn't answer, and then a minute later she calls me back and is like, oh, hi. And I'm like,
explain this, what were you doing?
She also today texted me and was like, I need some stocking stuffer gift ideas. And then she sent me, like, a text that was, like, a weird series of numbers and letters. Like, it made sense. I have to look at it. It wasn't, like, you know, just like, hand slamming the keyboard or something. It was something. But then she's like, sorry, that wasn't for you. And I'm like, who
was it for?
It was like a cryptic, like, assassination text. Like, go to these coordinates and kill the person you find there. It was weird.
Alana is the person you find there to kill.
I wish she was dead. Okay, thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good week. Goodbye.
Bye.